Hello, everyone. So I'm hoping that everybody can hear me. First of all, I hope you guys had a great weekend. Okay. Um, and I was able to see that some of you had been actually working on the quiz. I'm very happy for you guys. As I said before, um, usually you do not, people wait until the last minute to finish these programs and then everything gets delayed. Because when you wait until the end to do all the quizzes, then you have everything on top of you and so many other things come. And then all of a sudden you are 2, 3 months behind. Okay. So we are doing very good. All the quizzes are completed. Happy for Simone and Johnny. So let's just go ahead and keep that same rhythm so that we can finish everything up in time and just move ahead. All right. So let's just go over a few things here really quick. Just gonna do a kind of a sweep of last week really quick. I'm just gonna go over everything. All right. I don't know if anyone has a question before we start, or we should just go ahead and start with the class. Does anyone has a question? We good? Listening. No questions? Everybody's good? Good. 1, 2, 1, 2. All good. All right, so I'm gonna guess there's no question. So just gonna go with the where is it right here? Okay. All right, I'm just gonna so really quick. 1 second. Okay, so last week at the beginning of the class, we started talking about the introduction of the class, meaning actually I want to show you this. I didn't have a chance to show you this video. This video I have it online. I do have it's in Spanish, of course, but I just want to take a few minutes to go over it because this is part of the first. This was supposed to be the first class, the class that we had the issues with the internet, and he talks about a little bit about my introduction of the class in terms of how real estate works. Okay, uh, so pretty much talks about the real estate and all that is part of it: houses, buildings, industrial buildings, warehouses, residential properties, even farms can be part of real estate. Um, and real estate works in a way that, some people feels that maybe they have done all they can do in certain areas. So maybe they don't find a job. Maybe they need to go and to another place to get better education because they don't have no opportunities in that place, and then they end up moving to other sections. So that's the kind of migration that we spoke about in the first and second class. That is the migration that allows other areas to become like more crowded, like let's say New York City, for example. Here I put an example of what will happen if a new business will open up in a city, how that will bring a lot of people from other places to come and start looking for places to live in that area. So they start buying houses, they start renting houses, but at the same time, all the things happen, like businesses start moving in because people need to go for a coffee every once in a while. People's not going to be working all the time. So, but that moves the whole economy of that area. All right. So, uh, just because a new company, so that's when we we're talking about supply and demand, how the prices rise when there is less supplies than demand. We spoke about scarcity and how that affect the prices of houses and in real estate in general, and the opposite, how the prices fall when there is more to supply to the market than the demand that there is of it. All right. We also spoke about the buyer's market and the seller's market. I think we had a question about it to see the difference. Okay. So just wanted to go over that really quick. We also spoke about the law, New York State law, the Constitution of New York State. We spoke about the license law. Remember that we spoke about New York Department of State. There was a question this weekend about who is the supervisor, who is the entity, the organization, the public organization that is in charge of supervising the job, let's say, that each one of us as agents you guys are they're gonna become agents. What are you gonna be the stuff that you do? Who's gonna be looking, overseeing your job? And that's the New York Department of State. So do not forget that one. All right, New York Department of State supervise all the actions of brokers, salespersons in obviously real estate. And then remember Article 12A, 12A, 12 months. A is the first letter of the alphabet, so it's the 12A. All right, that's the one for that's the New York State license law. Okay, remember also the requirements. I posted this weekend also up to property basics. I posted on the group chat the PowerPoint presentation of that up to that point. So you guys, all these that I'm showing, you guys have it already. All right, so you can study of it. Very important. Look at the difference in terms of requirements for brokers and agents. All right. Um, who doesn't need a? There was a question also about who needs and who doesn't need a license to perform real estate. All right. And I have to stop over here because I think there was a question this weekend on the chat that said, who can negotiate with real estate without charging a fee? And charging a fee is what actually converts you into an agent. If you just negotiate or sell or not sell, let's say give real estate to someone and not collect the fee, then you're not acting as an agent. Therefore, you don't really need a license. But that's why in the question it was saying specifically who can sell or negotiate with real estate and charge a fee. All right. I mean, who can negotiate with real estate without having a license and, but charging a fee? Who can charge a fee without having to have a license? Okay, I think the answer was attorney. All right. Important, the difference between an independent contractor and an employee. We spoke about that you guys are going to be working with companies that are going to be having you as contractors. So therefore, you're going to be getting 1099s at the end of the year because you are a contractor. All right. So you have to remember that every time you get 10, 20, 30, $40,000 in commissions, you have to remember that some of that money is going to have to be paid for as taxes at the end of the year. All right. So don't waste it all. All right. We spoke really quick. This is still part of the independent contractor. We spoke quickly about reciprocity agreement. All right. As I said in the class, this doesn't really come out much, but it's important things that we would like to know. Okay, reciprocity agreements. We spoke about when the broker loses his license, what happens when the broker dies, the term commingling. All right, advertising. Uh, what does it have to be in an actual sign when you finally get a listing or listing for sale or something to lease? What does it have to be on that sign on the street? All right. The violations and the license suspensions we spoke about too. Then we jump into agency basics, and we're talking about the difference between an interested buyer or renter and an interested seller. Remember, you can represent either side, but we call the person that hires us as agents, we call them clients or principals. The person that we go and find that can provide that which our client needs, we call them customers. So that's the difference. I know sometimes it sounds confusing because we call clients and customer, in other businesses, but in this particular um, trade, we call clients or principals the people that actually hired us to do work for them. Okay, so remember the difference. But we also spoke about the how an interested buyer is not the same as a qualified buyer. And the best definition that real estate used to identify a qualified buyer is someone that is ready, willing, and able to actually do something, either purchase or lease an apartment or sell, even a person that is really looking to sell the property. Okay. We spoke about the 443 agency disclosure form. Remember that we spoke about it, and I think I mentioned that the best definition that I had of it was um, like a consumer's report. Like those consumers report that you have when you buy something, shows you this, oh, that you have the right to do this in case this has a malfunction when you buy a product. So this is the same thing well, not the same thing, but kind of similar in terms of services. We're supposed to give this in the first substantial encounter that we have with a customer or a client for either one. All right. So when someone approaches us and they start talking about hiring us or using our services, the first thing we should do is to give them a full 43 disclosure form, so they can read it and they can sign it. They don't have to sign it. They are not obligated to sign it, but we are obligated to mark it down. And if they don't want to sign it, we're obligated to put a note saying, this person didn't want to sign it, and we are obligated to keep it for at least 3 years. Okay, that's what the law says. All right. So we spoke about fiduciary duties owed to a principal too, and I use the term called AC to refer to 6 words. All right, 6 words. Remember what the 6 words were. All right. So we spoke about confidentiality for the C, obedience for the O, loyalty for the L, disclosure for the D, accountability for the A, and C for care. All right. I'm not gonna go into details of this unless any one of you forget about it, but I hope you remember. Just trying to go a little bit fast so that we can start with today's class. Um, okay, so we spoke about also within the agency basics about the dual agency. And we refer to dual agency when one broker, one agent, one broker had the, let's say 2 clients that wanted something that each one had. So in other words, it's like, I have Santos here tonight visiting us. So Santos is the broker, and Simon comes to Santos and said, "Listen, I have a house that I want to sell." And Santos said, "Okay, yeah, perfect." But at the same time, uh, Johnny comes and says to Santos, "Hey, how are you? I have I want to buy a house, right?" And then Santos, of course, is in the duty of showing whatever houses he has, including houses that are, from his own clients. Therefore, he has he is in the, let's say, the conundrum, right? Of finding out, not finding out, but he understands that he has 2 clients, 2 principals at the same time. The law says that you have to let them know so that they can decide if they still want to have you as a broker. All right, you have to let them know. Okay, but it's doable. Now there is a difference. We have dual agency and then we have designated agency. Okay, designated agency works in a way where you have 2 agents with 2 different principals, 2 different customers that work for the same office. So I have Simon and I have Carol that works for Santos Real Estate, for example. And then I go and I speak to Simon. I say, Simon, I want to buy a house. And then Johnny goes to Carol and says, Carol, I want to buy a house. I want to sell a house. So, it's not the same broker, but they work under the same, let's say the same roof, right? But the same office. So what happens is the broker, in this case Santos, becomes like a referee, where he says, okay, so you, Simon, are going to be working with Manny, and John is going to be working with Carol. So I'm going to designate each one of you to work with them. All right. So, but at the same time, the same thing happens. The two clients need to be aware. I mean, they know already they're working for the same office, but they need to be aware that maybe some of the fiduciary duties may be on their, not danger, but they might not be able to be fully fulfilled. All right. So that's what we refer. That's the difference between dual agency and designated agency. We spoke about universal, general, and special agents, remember? And we said that you guys are going to be special agents because you're going to be designated, you're going to be hired to do a specific thing. All right. To lease, to rent, to purchase, or to buy a real estate property. Since it's of agency, this is part of the same thing. We spoke about the commissions, how it's usually split around. The unethical, we spoke about price fixing. Remember, we spoke about market allocation, the things that are not supposed to be happening. Okay, things that are illegal. We spoke also about, let's see, fraud. Remember, we spoke about fraud, constructive fraud, the material fact, patent defect and latent defect. Remember latent defect? I said, just remember latent, something. Remember the first two letters, latent from late. Remember, late comes later, something that comes later, but it wasn't able to be seen, but it came after. All right. Open listings. We had a few questions, I believe, this weekend about open listings, exclusive agency listing, exclusive right to sell listings, and the net listings. All right. So let's see. We spoke about terminating the agency agreement also. You know, the ways on how we can terminate, on how our agency relationship can terminate with our client. Okay. At the end, we spoke about property basis. We spoke about land last weekend. Last Friday, Thursday. We spoke about land, and we mentioned that land, the raw land, it's of course what we call land. When we get the land and we add the improvements that can be houses, garages, fences on it, then we have real estate. Now, when we get that real estate and we have what we call the bundle rights, remember we watched that short video where we had all the rights. We have the possession, disposition, use, or control, encumber, or and quiet enjoyment. All right. So then we have what we call real property. Okay. So those are the 5 rights that compound the bundle of rights. At the end of that class, we spoke about the improvements and how, you know, that can somehow affect the property sometimes for good or for bad. We spoke about fixtures or attachments, the stuff that we put into a house, and we spoke about the trade fixtures to refer to those things that we attach to commercial properties that are also of the use of the business that is in that commercial space. Remember all that. We also spoke about the emblems. Remember the emblems when we mentioned that the owner, a homeowner or property owner, has the right, it's considered personal property. Listen to me, personal property. The emblems are considered personal property, and the emblems is what we refer to how you call it, the harvest. So in this, put this information here, this picture with the corn cobs that are ready, you know, ready to be taken out and taken to the market. So that's personal property. Now, he cannot take the whole plants, but he can take the actual harvest. So that's called emblems. And we refer to the plants as fructus naturalis. Fructus naturalis, I forgot to add it here, but fructus naturali. Okay, that was a little bit of Roman and Italian at the same time over there. All right, so at the end, we spoke about the appurtenances. Appurtenances are rights that come with the properties. Rights that come with properties, with real estate. So they can be air rights, water rights, or mineral rights. Okay. And we ended up talking about air rights. Remember, we ended up the conversation talking about air rights, and we were saying that over our real estate, over our building, our houses, we have everything above us, from the top of our roof to a safe distance up in the air, a safe distance up in the air. That's our right, our air right. So we have rights all the way up to a safe distance. The best way to define a safe distance is a distance to which, let's say, airplanes can safely, airplanes or, you know, any kind of air traffic can travel with no disturbance. So that's, you know, federal airspace, whatever they call it. So that's not ours, but up until then is all part of our real estate. The same thing happens with going down. So we own, this is what the law says. I'm not just making it up. The law says that we own from the center of the earth, the center of the earth, to our property. So anything below us is ours. Anything below our property is ours until the center of the earth. All right. So I was saying that air rights can be transferred. You know, you can lease your air rights, you can sell your air rights. I was putting as an example, when you see these big signs on top of the highways when you see signs on top of the trains, or I was putting an example of the buildings they built on top of what seems to be like tunnels. You feel like you're going under something. So those are air rights that has been transferred. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about the other air rights. Remember I said the appurtenances are rights that come with the property. And I mentioned three. I already mentioned one, which is the air right. So now I'm going to slow down the speed. And now we're going to be talking. All right. So water rights. So we also have water rights. And now I'm not talking about you open the faucet and there's water. No. I'm talking about if you live next to a river, the ocean, or a lake. All right. So, you always wonder what if I live next to, like, if my house or my property is actually in the border of water, a body of water, as they refer to it. All right. So let's talk first about littoral rights. So littoral rights are rights that you have when you have uh, a real estate that is bordering a body of water that is standing, that is not moving, that is next to a lake. So that's why they call it littoral rights. For the test, remember that the first, I mean, it sounds like lake, littoral, right? So it says that you have the right from the center of the lake all the way to the where the sand begins, the sand, the dirt, whatever it is you have in front of your property. So all that also belongs to you. All right. So that's part of your land. That's what the law says. Littoral rights. You must be wondering, why do we have to study this? Why do we have to study this part of why we have to learn about littoral rights or riparian rights? And what happens is that we have to hold on. I have to call security here because I have someone that is okay. Hold on one second. Go to sleep. Go to pee. Go to sleep. So anyway, so going back to riparian rights, go. Riparian rights. It's then we talk about a mass of water or a body of water where there is actually water flowing. Sorry about that. So it's water flowing, right? So that's why we call it riparian rights. So remember, for the test, riparian means river, littoral means lake. So riparian rights. So as many of you have been or have drove by, have seen houses that are basically next to a river, right? And the law says then that you have the right to the where the water uh, touches your land, right? That's yours. But if you have a bank, okay, so what we call the river bank, which is usually, as you can see in the picture here on the screen, okay, there is a, let me see, oh, this one doesn't have, okay. So when you see here, there is like, sometimes rivers have like a section that comes in, right? And water accumulates on that section. So that's what we call water banks. So the water comes in and then it doesn't flow nowhere. It just stays there, all right? So that if your house is next to a water bank, then it happens the same thing as with a lake. You owe the section of the water that goes to the middle of the bank, uh, your property, or I will say it's yours, is you own from the middle of that section until where your sand or dirt starts. In other words, if you live next to a river and you have a water bank, and someone is going down the river in a boat, they cannot come into the water bank and put the anchor out over there. Not without your authorization, of course. All right, because that belongs to you. So you have the right to tell them to leave because it's private property. All right. So as I was saying before, I got interrupted. Is that, why are we looking into this information? Because well, you don't know where you're going to be selling real estate. You don't know where they're going to be calling you to sell a house that is next to a lake or next to a river, or buying a house that is next to a lake or next to a river. And one of the fiduciary duties that we have is the one of care. And we have to be careful when we are actually looking into what we're selling or what we are looking to buy. And it's interesting to know these kind of things because you want to let your buyer know, for example, what they're buying, what they are, um, what comes with what they're buying, you know. So it's really interesting conversation, or I mean, information. All right. So we spoke about literal rights and riparian rights. So you can see here, okay, and the literal rights also, just so you know, also it's the same concept for the ocean. All right, ocean or seawater. Okay, as you can see over here. Now, the only one thing that happens when you live next to a body of water is that sometimes, because the forces of nature, you might end up having certain situations, and these situations may add land or real estate to what you already own. I mean, or take it. So now we're talking about all these, the environmental changes and how the environment it's been destroyed by all the chemicals and all the stuff that is happening, how the glaciers are melting and all, and how that's raising the water levels of the ocean. So as you can see here on the right, when that happens, we heard that there are places where the coast is is people is losing coast how you call it, sections, because the water is raising. Therefore, people is losing land. So imagine if you have a house over here and the water starts raising, you start losing part of your property literally, because that becomes water. It goes from being dirt, from being sand to become water. Okay, so you start losing already river. Imagine if there's a river, there's a storm, and the river starts going down with a lot of strength and takes like a lot of a lot of your property gets underwater, and the water stays there, and that's it, never goes back down. So you just lost a lot of water because that's moving water. Okay, so we call that avulsion, something like that. Avulsion. So it can happen the other way too. It can happen where maybe a river is drying, you know, and then you end up with more land. You know, when the water levels go down, you end up with less water, therefore with more land available to you. And we call that alluvion. Okay, so these are things that can happen. Okay, when you live next to a water, a body of water. Let's see what else do we have. So we have to talk about the last appurtenance right, or in this case, mineral right. So mineral right, remember that I was telling you a few minutes ago that we own from the bottom, from the middle of the earth to the surface, right? That everything under us is ours, everything under our property. So what happens when there are minerals under our property? What does the law says? How does that work? So the law says if you have minerals under your property, okay, it's the person that has access to it first who becomes the owner of it. So that means that if you don't have, uh, you can be living, you can be sitting on gold for 20 years and not know about it, right? And then your neighbor somehow end up uh, putting a hose under your land and finding out that there is gold over there, and he starts extracting it. That's what they call the rule of capture. Okay, so he starts taking the gold, and then you are okay. What am I going to do now? You know, they found it first. Okay, that's what that's how mineral rights work. Now, Remember that I was telling you that these rights are transferable. And in the event, I like to keep to use this picture here, because as you can see, you have what seems like an oil drill on the right side of the house. And I like to use this picture to represent the fact that, imagine if like, as you probably know, when a company gets a lease to drill oil, forget the name of, where the oil is, uh, there is they give them, 5, 10, 15 years to do that. They keep taking it out, taking it out, taking it out. So what may happen is that the owner of a house said, okay, I found oil, but I'm not gonna be wasting my time, my effort, just getting the machine and doing that. I'm not an expert. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna lease the extraction, the right to extract this for 15 years. So what he does is he gives it to someone else for 15 years. He gives that right to someone else, to a company, and then he decides to sell the house. Okay, so I'm talking about not 15 years from now, but today. So he says to someone, listen, I'm gonna sell you my house, but remember there is a mineral rights that I transfer for 15 years to this company. So that means the person that buys the property cannot do anything about it. They cannot say to the company, oh, I bought this house, you have to stop. No, because they already transfer the right to extract those minerals for 15 years. All right. So someone can buy the property, they can live there, but they cannot do anything about, the extraction of the mineral under the land. Okay. Uh, okay. So that was pretty much property basics. We're going to be talking about interest in real property. Um, so today or tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about freehold and leasehold. Okay. So where do the term freehold, well, first of all, the term estate, you know, if you guys watch or like to watch movies about dragons, those that watch what was the name of that thing, the dragon thing? I forgot that. I didn't watch it. So, but yeah, I used to like all those movies and series about knights and all that stuff. But if you remember how they uh, how they lived back in the 15, 1400s, um, there was a king. Everybody was like, there was a kingdom, and they had all these different sections, specifically in Europe, where everybody was living around the kingdom, and the king was the one that was deciding. And there was all these wars. People was like always fighting. So kings had their knights, and they had the army, but people will live within the surroundings of the kingdom, right? And all the land surrounding the big castle where the king lived, that all belong to the king. That's why they call it kingdom, right? And that's actually what they used to call, I have a chat here who is talking, let's say Game of Thrones. Thank you, Johnny. Game of Thrones. Yeah, so we have all these little houses from the peasants, the people that live, that was farmers and all that. So what happened was that they all the state belonged to the king. Everything, even where they live, those little houses belong to the king. And the people was holding or living in these houses, but they have to either give something back in order to stay there. So they were paying for protection, and they were paying to be able to uh, be a habitant of the kingdom. So they were never owners of the properties, of the houses, of the land. They were able to use it, but they have to pay something. So you see, some the farmers have to give animals to the king. They have to give, the corn, any kind of agriculture products as a way of payment. Okay, and then at the same time, like the people that will go and fight for the king, every once in a while, they, if they won a big battle or something, the king will give them a piece of land and give it to them. And then they had the right to do whatever they wanted to do with the land. So that became the state of Lord something. You know, that person ended up with their own state. Okay, so they have what they call a freehold state. As you know better than me, of course, hold comes from holding. Therefore, when you mention the word freehold, means that you hold it without for free. I mean, you not that you got it for free, but that you hold it without owing it to someone else. Okay, as opposed to leasehold, where you actually have a state that you are literally just staying there, and you have to pay something in um, something, you pay something to someone. All right. So now that you know historically where the word state and leasehold and freehold come from, we're gonna go to the actual why do we call it or what that stands for here today. So we have the freehold and the leasehold estate. So the freehold estate is what we know about when you own your own property. You know, you own the property, the land that sits on the property, and the bond of the right. Okay, it's the most common home form of ownership for houses, and you literally get to maintain the building yourself, and you basically don't pay no rent to no one. Okay, that's a freehold. It's something that you hold. It's something that is yours. Leasehold is what most commonly know when someone lives in an apartment, someone lives in a place where they're paying rent. It's like literally the easiest way to know the difference. You know, freehold is something that is yours. Leasehold is something that you, when someone rents and pays to lease or to rent the space. Okay, now we're gonna be talking about. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so we just to expand a little bit more on that we just spoke about. So we have what they call the state in land or possessory estate. You know, possessory is something comes from possession. So as I mentioned, we have two. We have the freehold estates and we have the leasehold estates. Okay, and the freehold estates, uh, it's when we're talking about something that you own. Therefore, it's yours. Now, when we're gonna start with the left side here, where it's talking about fee simple state. You can see the diagram, it goes to the left, or my left, fee simple state, and then it goes down and it divides on two. It divides on fee simple absolute and fee simple divisible. Fee simple absolute is, as it name says, it's absolute. It's the best way of owning a property because you don't own it. You own it without owning anything, owing anything to anyone. So it's like it's yours. It's absolutely yours. Okay. Now the opposite, or not entirely the opposite, but when you're an absolute owner, it's when it talks about fee simple divisible. Now divisible, the word divisible stands for a condition. Okay. Remember we're talking about freehold estate. So when you own something with a condition, as you can see, it goes down, and then you have fee simple determinable with a reverter, something that reverts to someone else, or fee simple divisible with a condition subsequent. So the difference is very easy. Just bear with me. So we have the fee simple absolute is when you own your house and you are the absolute owner of it, or the fee simple divisible with it's when you own something but with a condition. You can keep possession of that house, that property, with the condition of. Okay, divisible condition. Just remember that. Now, I have two options. One is with a reverter, okay, and the other one is with subsequent entry. What that means is the reversion means that, let's say I tell Johnny, I'm going to sell you a house and I'm going to give you a mortgage. All right. Just remember, if you don't pay the house, I'm going to take the house back. Okay. So I'm selling Johnny a house. all right? But I'm selling it to him with a condition. And when Johnny stops paying the mortgage, I go and take money. Okay, Johnny, I'm sorry. I'm taking the house back. Put the house back in my name. All right. So the condition didn't take place. Therefore, the property reverts to me. All right. And that's what refers to a reverter. If there is a condition that doesn't, uh, uh, if the condition is not, well, if the condition happens, then it goes back to me. All right. Now, when Johnny pays off the mortgage, he becomes a fee simple absolute owner. So he freeholds that state. He's the absolute owner with nothing until that condition happens. All right. Now, the difference between that one and the condition with a subsequent entry means that the same example is that Johnny comes to me and says he wants to buy a house. I say, Johnny, I'm gonna sell you a house, uh, but if you stop paying, I'm gonna take it. So the difference is that Johnny stops paying, but I don't automatically decide to take over the property. All right. So one in the terminal with reverter becomes automatically like he stops paying and automatically his deed, his title reverts to me. He reverts to Manny Reposo automatically, right? Because he stopped paying. In the second one, I will have to act. I will have to actually, start a legal process or something to take it back. All right. So that's the difference. One is a condition with two different ways, and the other one you own the property with the fee simple absolute. You own the property, and it's all yours. All right. So that's fee simple state. Now we're gonna jump to the right there on freehold state on the cruising on the diagram. We're gonna jump to life state. Remember life state, life, your life, my life, our life. So just to remember for the test. And I'm gonna jump to the right side first. The conventional right there on life state. In life state, I'm gonna continue down, make a right to conventional life state with reversion or remainderment. Okay, so reversion or remainderment. Okay, what does that mean? Well, uh, I'm gonna go down first to explain better. So I'm gonna go to ordinary. As you can see, I made a little bit. I made a note to refer to the life of the owner. Ordinary is the most common one. So what this means is that you get to own a piece of real estate until a person's life is extinguished, until a person's life disappears. Now, uh, so on the ordinary, the life of the owner of the property, okay, it's the one that has to be over in order for the property either go and reverse back to somebody else or a third party. What does that mean? So Johnny says to me, Manny, I really like you. You're a really nice guy, and I want to, I know that you are old and don't have a place to go, so I want to give you a house, and I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna keep you there, but I'm gonna give you a life state, an ordinary, conventional life state. And what happens is when I die, right, that house goes back to Johnny's daughter, for example, or not Johnny, sorry, will go actually to him because this is the life of the owner. All right, so it will go back to the owner, or it will go back to a third person, depending on what they desire. So, is either reversion, which means to reverse to the actual owner, or the remainder man, which is a third person, daughter, son, a wife, who they want that property to go to. Okay? And pour autre vie, French term, refers to someone else's life. So we may have it in a way that we have Santos, who has a brother, right? And they Santos owns the property, and he lives with his brother. And Santos has a daughter. So Santos says to his daughter, listen, I want to give you this house, but I'm going to put this house under your name. Okay. But the house will go to your possession, not when I passed away, but when my younger brother passed away. All right. So basically, the daughter will have to wait until the second person dies. So someone else's dies before that person can actually take possession of the property and do what she wants to sell it, lease it, whatever. Okay. So that's why we call it life state. Life state, because it depends on the life of the owner or the life of someone else's. Okay. So we have the ordinary or in the put vie, okay, for someone else's life, and it can either go back to the previous owner or it can go back to a third person. Okay, and now for the other side, staying right there, we're gonna be actually, I'm just gonna finish up this side so we can jump to the quiz. So we're gonna go to the legal life state. Right there, we're still in freehold states, as you can see the diagram. We went to free simple state, now we're going to the other side. We went from life state, we're making a left now. We're gonna go to legal life state. This one is very simple. So going down on legal life state to the right, we have first marital life state. So all of you are married, and so you know, this one is very simple. Law says when you marry someone, you become one. So what that means is that the dower, which means that when the husband dies, the wife becomes the owner of the whole property. And the opposite, which is the courtesy, it says that when the wife dies, then the owner, the surviving husband, becomes the owner of the whole property. Okay. Now, on the other side, it talks about the homestead. A homestead is an old term that comes from the years of the Civil War in the United States, where people, there was so much land in this country that the government decided to give it away to people that will actually use it for making the land productive. So you will actually take possession. They will give you possession of the property as long as you will use it for agriculture or to raise animals and that kind of stuff, cattle. Uh, and it stayed like that for years. So now some states use it, and it's called homestead, and it became a right for people, where uh, as long as your primary residence is on that homestead in that piece of land, you have rights against creditors and other people. Like they wouldn't just go able you wouldn't be able to just uh, evict you or do all the kind of stuff with your piece of land, right? So I'm gonna leave it right here. Believe it or not, it's already 8:47. I know this is the part that you like the most when the class is over, but it's not over until we do our quiz. So we're gonna be doing our quiz. Anyone has a question? I'm putting these on in case someone has something to say or ask. I know I was a little bit quick at the beginning, but I was just trying to do a quick, going over last week class pretty quick, just so we can refresh our memories. All right, so let me just, okay, here we go. So today we're gonna be doing number. Okay, so property basics. We're gonna finish property basics today. So we're gonna do 6A property basics. Did we? Okay. Let me see. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna bring you guys here now. Okay, what do we have here? Someone is saying, can you send us the last document on the presentation? What do you mean, Simon? I'm confused. The last document on tonight's
Sorry,
presentation?
like the organizational chart where you had kind of everything flowing into,
Oh, the diagram.
yes, the
Oh, you
diagram.
want me to send it? Okay, okay. I will send you. You want me to send it now instead of waiting for the end of the week?
Yeah, because I'd like to review that.
Okay. Yeah. No. Definitely. No. No worries.
Thank you.
Uh, always. All right. So let's jump here really quick. Everybody's looking at this. Perfect. So here we are. First question of the night, people. You guys ready? All right. So emblements are A, always, B, sometimes, never, personal property. Going with the chat. Someone, Carol says A, Johnny says A, Simon says A. We're going with the A. Correct. The answer is A. Wow, you guys remember. Okay. Which item is not a fixture? Which item is not a fixture? So we're going built-in washer that's at a repair shop on the day of closing. The curio cabinet in the living room that matches the room decor. The keys to the house. Okay, I have a first letter here. I have a C from Johnny. Johnny says the keys to the house are not a fixture. Okay, Simon says C2. Somebody else. Which item is not a fixture? Okay, going with the C. Carol says C2. Let's go. C. Your answer is incorrect. Mm. Mm. Johnny says, okay, Simon says B and Johnny says A. So I have two different letters. So I need another letter. Let's see. Carol says A2. So I have two A's. So I'm going with the A. The built-in washer that's at a repair shop on the day of closing. Incorrect. The answer is B. John and Simon got the answer, the correct answer. So the curio cabinet might look nice in the room, but it's not a fixture. The dishwasher is still part of the real property, even though it's not in the house. Okay, keys are considered to be fixtures. Sorry, I didn't talk about it, but I guess keys belong to a house. How are you gonna open the house without the keys? You're gonna use a property without one. I apologize, we didn't talk about it. It was a tricky one, I have to say. The fence is attached to the land, so it is a fixture. Thank you guys. All right, let's go one more time. This is Buffy wants to buy Sandra's house. She really likes the patio with the built-in grill. She puts in the contract that the built-in grill is included in the purchase of the property. Sandra agrees to the contract. When Buffy moves in after the closing, she finds the grill gone. She sues Sandra. The court rules in her favor. What would be the most compelling evidence used to determine the ruling? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so I have Simon C C C C C C C C. Correct. Perfect. Great. Written agreement are the most compelling evidence when a dispute arises about a property. All right, people, you're doing great tonight. Carl, the candy maker. Listen to this one. This one is tricky. Tricky. Carl, the candy maker. We spoke about this last week and this week. Carl, the candy maker, has a 5-year lease. He installed a marble counter to use for making fudge. When the lease is up, Carl A can leave the marble counter and charge the landlord for the improvement. B can remove the marble counter because it's a trade fixture. C cannot remove the counter because it was permanently attached to the cabinet, and D must remove the marble counter since he didn't ask permission to install it. Let me hear you. Let me hear you say. Simon says B can remove the marble counter because it's a trade fixture. Says Simon. Somebody else. Let me see what you guys have to offer. Johnny says B too. So am I going with the B? Let's see. Going with the B, 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 B. Correct. Carol says D, so no. Okay. B, 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 B. You guys are doing good. Last one. Let me see. Harvey owns a small commercial building. He rented to Lucy, who opens a ceramic shop. Lucy installed a kiln. I don't know what a kiln is. 4 years later, 4 years later, Harvey sells the property to Anne, who wants to start her own pottery. Oh, okay. I think that's the machine. Is maybe the machine that you used to do pottery thing. Harvey sells the property to Anne, who wants to start her own pottery business. When Lucy's lease is up, who owns the kiln? I hope I am saying it right. Anne, Harvey, Lucy. Indeed, it's impossible to tell without more information. So I have here C and C. She's both of you guys says that Lucy owns the kiln. All right. Anyone else? Pam 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 pam. Okay, I'm going with the C then. Let's see. Lucy, correct. Perfect. Lucy the tenant installed the king for her business. It's a trade fixture. The same question we saw before, all right? So let's see. We do a few questions. We have 2 minutes to 9. So let's see if we do at least 2 questions from today's thing. Interest in real property. All right, let me see. I don't like to go into these quizzes because since if we don't finish the chapter, then sometimes we end up with questions that you guys don't have the answer. But let's see if we can find a few ones here. What? Okay, talking about that. Let's see. Nope. 1 second. All right, let me bring you guys here to see if you can at least do this one. Okay. Okay, here we go. So which statement about a fee simple absolute is false? Guys, remember, for the exam, for the test, these are tricky questions because you have to read. It says here which statement about it is false. So you remember false, negative. No. So here we go. Which statement about fee simple absolute is false? A person can own it indefinitely. A person who is transferring an interest that is fee simple absolute cannot put limitations on the interest of a new owner. It is the highest, freest form of ownership that is an example of the allodial system, and it is transferable and inheritable. Inheritable. False. Which one of those are or is for? False. Which one is false? All right, so I have C from Simone. She says that it's false, that is the highest, freest form of ownership, and it is an example of the allodial system. Anyone else? Okay, so I have 2 C's. I'm going to C's. I have Johnny and Simone with the C. Both of you are saying that is false, that the fee simple absolute that we saw, it's the highest, freest form of ownership and is an example of the allodial system. Okay, so you're going with C, and the answer is B. Okay, so remember, we're talking about the absolute. When we say the absolute part of it, when we spoke about this, we said this is the best way of owning a state, a property. The fee simple absolute is the one where you don't own it to anyone. It's the freest form. You know, it's the one where you have no, not you don't own it to no one. If you think about this one has a condition, this the life state has a condition too. So you know, even someone gives you with a life state, it's not really owner. You don't you don't fully own it because you have a condition on it. Okay. Legal life state, same thing. You know, it's not like you can kick your husband out and say, okay, I'm taking this property, I don't want you in the property. You made an agreement, right? So uh, fee simple absolute, it is the freest form to own a piece of property. Okay, remember. So I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys had a great night, and we're doing great, guys. All right, have a great
Thank
night.
you. You too.
Take care.